Just a decade ago, the trajectory of UConn football was in a much different spot than it is today. A program that was fairly new to the FBS had found a lot of success with winning seasons and bowl victories, and was a program that could be on the rise after they made it to the Fiesta Bowl in 2011. But fast forward to present day 2022, and the Connecticut football team is falling fast and is in a weird spot. They haven't won more than 4 games in a season since 2015, and their winless streak at one point eclipsed 600 days. So the question is, what happened to UConn football, and how did they get to this point? In today's video, we'll be looking at what has happened to the football program over the past decade and looking at the current state of their team and what is next. It would seem like with a basic Google search, UConn football hasn't had much success in the FBS, and that wouldn't necessarily be wrong. For the majority of the program's history, they operated in the FCS until they made the jump up to the FBS level as an independent for the 2000 season. Making this jump with the program was head coach Randy Edsall, who started as the head coach for the program in 1999. Edsall had accomplished a lot in his time at Connecticut, and he wasn't just the bridge guy to something bigger. When he took over in 1999, the Huskies were in their last season as an FCS school and getting ready to transition into the FBS as an independent. His first winning season at the school would come in his 5th season in 2003, where the Huskies won 9 games. And in 2004, they began competing in the Big East Conference, where in just 4 more seasons, they tied for first place in the conference in 2009. At this point, Edsall and the Huskies had 3 straight winning seasons, finishing with 9 wins in 2007 and 8 wins in 2008 and 2009. The program got their first bowl victories in this time span as well, winning the International Bowl against Buffalo in 2008 and the Papa John's Bowl against South Carolina in 2009. 2010 might have been the pinnacle and peak for the program, as with a little bit of luck, an 8-5 squad made it to the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma. That season didn't exactly start well, as the team went 3-4 to kick off the season, capped off with a 26-0 defeat at Louisville. But with 5 conference games to go, UConn ran the table and won their final 5 games, including 2 against West Virginia and Pittsburgh, the 2 best teams in the conference that season. That year, the Big East would end in a 3-way tie for first place between UConn, West Virginia, and Pittsburgh, each finishing 5-2 in conference play. And since the Huskies had beaten both of those teams, they took the conference's berth in the BCS, where they played against an Oklahoma squad that lost just 2 games in the entire season. To no surprise, the Sooners beat the Huskies 48-20 to end the year, and after this season, Randy Edsall would leave the program to take the job at Maryland. Edsall had been through it all with the Huskies, from the FCS to an FBS independent, to losing seasons, to bowl berths, and finally that Fiesta Bowl appearance in the 2010-2011 season. From 2004 to 2010, Edsall had finished 6 of those 7 seasons with a winning record, a stretch that hadn't been seen before at the school. To replace Edsall, the program hired Paul Pasqualoni for the 2011 season and beyond. Only, his tenure as the head coach wouldn't even last 3 full seasons. Before his first season even kicked off, Robert Burton, one of the biggest donors for the program, ripped the hire of Paul and knew immediately that it was going to be a wrong match. The program should have listened from the jump, but it didn't start off entirely awful. In 2011, the team had lost 6 starters from that 2010 squad, including All-American Jordan Todman and quarterback Zach Frazier. With all these losses, this inexperienced team went 5-7, losing 4 games by just 1 possession, so it wasn't all bad. However, the 2012 season was exactly the same, as the team went 5-7 with 4 close losses yet again, and after an 0-4 start in the following 2013 season, Pasqualoni was let go. The team would go on to finish that season at 3-9, with 9 straight losses to open the season, and the program was beginning to spiral. But along came Bob Diaco, the defensive coordinator and assistant head coach at Notre Dame, to try and give the program a jump start. His first season in 2014 wasn't one anyone hoped for, as the team won 2 games, but they bounced back in 2015 and finished the year at 6-7, which included a bowl appearance that they lost to Marshall by just 6 points. This was a fairly competitive team, one that even upset number 13 Houston late in the season and came a few points away from beating number 22 Missouri early on in the year. But that win against Houston was probably the last peak for this program, and a team that might have been on the rise fell back down once again. After this season, Bob Diaco received an extension, which included a more expensive buyout should they ever reach that point. And eventually, they would, as 2016 was a frustrating 3-win campaign, which even saw the Huskies get shut out in back-to-back weeks against Temple and Boston College. That resulting season was enough for Bob Diaco to get his contract bought out, which cost the university over $3 million. The next head coach would be a familiar face to the program, Randy Edsall. Edsall's tenure at Maryland didn't go too well, and a return in 2017 to a program he helped bring up was ideal for both parties. Of course, it wasn't going to be easy, and there was a lot of work to be done. 2017 wasn't an easy year, and the program once again came out with 3 wins. Surely, with Edsall back, things were going to get better, but that just didn't happen, and things slowly got worse, and the program has regressed each season. The 2018 season saw the program win just 1 game, and it was a record-setting year for all of the wrong reasons. UConn allowed the most points in yards by any team in FBS history this year, and they gave up an average of 50.42 points a game and allowed over 600 yards a game. 2019 couldn't really be any worse than the previous season, and the program went 2-10 this time around, with their 2 wins coming against Wagner and Massachusetts. On the bright side, the school only had 8 games this season of allowing 35 points or more, so there was a little bit of progress. But in 2020, UConn became one of the first and only FBS schools to rule out playing football at all for the year, and once everyone else made a return, they still elected not to. The school itself made the tough decision to cut 8 sports from the university in order to save money, and the football team found itself in a tough situation. Would they be able to remain in the FBS? Would they have to eventually move down to the FCS? Or would they even have a football team in a few years? While the answer to that question still remains to be seen, UConn returned to play in this past 2021 season. A lot of the players on their opening day roster were either freshmen or sophomores, and what we saw were the results of a very young team. Right out of the gates, they looked just like a team that hadn't played in over a year would. In their first 3 games, they were shut out twice and allowed a total of 132 points, and one of those losses came to Holy Cross. Just after 2 games, head coach Randy Edsall announced that he would retire after the season was complete, and then just a few days later elected to just step down immediately, with Lou Spanos taking over as the interim head coach. It wouldn't get any easier as the program was crushed by Army and allowed almost 400 rushing yards during the game. But in the middle of the season, UConn had seen at least some hope, as they dropped 2 heartbreaking and close games to Wyoming and Vanderbilt, each by 2 points, before they finally won a game over Yale. The team would finish the season off at 1-11, but now here we are in present day 2022, and the UConn program, one that once made it to a Fiesta Bowl a decade ago, is in a very weird spot. They will have a fresh start moving forward, but the pressure is on as the program hasn't hit on a head coaching hire since the very first time they hired Randy Edsall. The program is also operating as an independent, which definitely has its perks, but the appeal for UConn football probably hasn't been lower than it is now. But nobody else is really at fault for the program's demise, not the supporters and not even the players on the football team itself either, but rather just the decision making and the way that the university's priorities have been set up. This is a school that already didn't have a lot of money to begin with, and with everything that's happened over the past few seasons, the university had to cut many sports programs because they didn't have the funds to keep those sports running, and with the money they do have, it goes elsewhere. It's widely known that the University of Connecticut is a basketball school, period, and it probably always will be. Their women's team might be the most dominant Division I sports program across any sport, and their men's team is also a talented and well-run program as well. And even then, the basketball teams might need facility upgrades themselves as well. But when the university decided to make the jump from the AAC back to the Big East, it was a damaging decision and it really affected the football team. The Big East, as we know, doesn't have any FBS football teams, and the only football members they do have operate at the FCS level. So for right now, the program is stuck in this spot where they cannot compete in a conference, and there's nothing that they can do about it because UConn is now back in the Big East. However, the university isn't afraid to spend the money it does have to make its football program better. They already reportedly spent around $4.4 million on its entire football staff, and there isn't a reluctance to see that number increase. They also recently built a $50 million facility, and it actually does look really nice, so I will give the program some credit for that. But for a program that is struggling with money, will it be worth it? Spending money is great, but spending it wisely is better. In January of 2020, it was reported that the Huskies made $3.3 million in revenue and spent $16.6 million during the 2019 season. That's a loss of over $13 million, and I can't imagine they have made much profit in any season over the past 5 years. At the end of the day, spending money doesn't equate to wins, and the athletic director knows that. But again, this program isn't afraid to make a splash, and they believe that they have found their guy, as in November of 2021, UConn officially unveiled its next head coach in Jim Mora, who has found some success in college football before, most notably at UCLA. He has the experience, and for a program like UConn, an experienced coach who has been around the game might be what they need. Moving forward, the football team will have to deal with the consequences of a conference move and operate as an independent, and while that does have its downsides, UConn could build themselves to model around a BYU, rather than a Notre Dame, as AD David Benedict believes. Also, to their credit, UConn has made some really nice additions to their schedule for the future. They really don't have too much competition in their region, but through 2027, they've scheduled games against Michigan, North Carolina State, Boston College, Ole Miss, and North Carolina, with all those games being televised on CBS Sports Network. With all that being considered, an experienced head coach, a schedule at some potentially big games, and a team that is finally back playing, the future of UConn football surprisingly is looking up. College football has always been a sport where good coaching matters, and one good hire could revive a program, and in this case, hopefully it's Jim Mora and hopefully it's with UConn. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds for this program, but as always, only time will tell if UConn can get its football team back to some sort of winning. This has been the fall of UConn football. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and as always, I will see you guys next time.
We're off to a good start. And we got to keep freaking building, man. Right? We're after something.